Well, hello everybody and welcome. You know, every year at St. Patrick's Day we go to the shops and we buy a corned beef. Comes in a vacuum packed, sealed bag with a tiny little packet of spices that you add into it. And every year we follow the instructions and every year we're really disappointed with the results. Every year sitting at the table eating what is supposed to be corned beef, we always look at each other and say, we should make our own. So this year for Christmas, you might have guessed it's Christmas time because of the tree in the background and the new hat and jumper that the girls either made or bought for me. We decided we're going to make our own corned beef. And this is how we did it.
So exactly what is corned beef?
Well, basically it's just a piece of meat, beef of course, that's salted. It originates from back in Ireland, where poor farmers had to export all their meat to Britain. Back sometime in the 1600s, there was a law passed in Britain that stated that the beef grown in Ireland had to stay there. So that meant that the poorer people, the peasants, had access to beef. Now it was only a couple of times a year on the high feast days, Christmas, Easter, maybe some of the major holy days. But they used to salt it so it could last for most of the year. So the salt that they used came from Portugal, and the crystals were in the shape of a corn kernel. So over the years, instead of calling it salt beef, it eventually became corned beef, and we know it today as corned beef. So in actual fact, making your own corned beef is really simple. Just takes some time and a little bit of effort, but the results are exponentially better than anything you can buy in any store.
So we need about a week for our beef to fully cure, so we started this on the 18th of December. All you need is salt, brown sugar, and pink curing salt.
What is pink curing salt?
This stuff can be kind of hard to find at your local grocery store, but it's widely available online. And it's a salt that contains preservatives to preserve the meat for longer. And if you're not a fan of preservatives, you can sub this out with 2 teaspoons of celery seed, and that will add in some of those nitrates and nitrites that we get from the pink salt.
However, you won't get that pink colour that's associated with corned beef unless you use the pink curing salt. So the first thing we do is dissolve the salt, the pink curing salt and the brown sugar in about a gallon of water, 4 litres, 4 quarts, thereabouts.
Now we're going to add in our spices, and this is where you can do a little bit of customization. If you don't like one of the spices that we've used here, you can sub it out for something else or just leave it out. As for us, we used some garlic, bay leaves, ground coriander. Ideally it would be whole, but we didn't have that on hand. And we also used some allspice, celery seed, and we also used a few cloves, whole peppercorns, and some mustard seed. Give those a good mix, and then you can add in your flat cut brisket. Flat cut is typically the cut that you would use for a corned beef, so that's what we've used here. Ours is about 7 pounds, and that's about all you'll fit in this amount of brine. But you can also do this with a smaller brisket as well.
It's also about as big as we could fit in our pot.
Yeah. And then you're going to add the lid on, and you're going to set this in the fridge for 6 to 8 days, depending on the size of your brisket. If it's a little smaller, you might want to go for 6. If it's on the larger side, you want to go for 7 or 8 days.
Now the great thing about using a wet brine instead of the traditional dry curing salt is that you don't have to touch it. Once you put it in the fridge, leave it there, set it and forget it. So we cured ours for 7 days. Then we took it out, we patted it dry, we put it in the Dutch oven, or if you have a large crock pot, covered it with 2 quarts of water, and we added some garlic, 3 cloves, some bay leaves, 2 bay leaves, and about a spoonful of black peppercorns. Set it on the stove top and bring it to a rolling boil. Get this up to temperature because it's going to be very hard to get it to boil if you put it in the oven without doing this previous step. Once it comes to the boil, we put it into the oven, 275 degrees. And just a bit of advice, if you don't have time to make your own, like we did, if you do buy one of the ones in the vacuum pack, make sure you take that out. Don't follow the instructions, follow the instructions we're giving you here.
This temperature is going to keep it at a nice low simmer so that it won't boil over in the oven.
So after 3 hours, we take it out of the oven. It doesn't look too pretty right now, but we take the fat off, and once we slice into it, you will see that it looks amazing. After 15 minutes of a rest, We slice it. You can slice it thick or thin. We like ours on the thicker side, but as you can see, it has that beautiful pink colour that you can only get from the pink curing salt.
We ate ours with a bit of roasted cabbage and mashed potatoes.
Yummy stuff. Now, corned beef is a true Christmas dinner, but if you want it for St. Patrick's Day, just remember, start it about 7 days beforehand. Remember, the world is a better place because you're in it, and we can do this. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day and get to brining. There's a lot of editing, but eventually, sometime in the 1700s, there was a law passed.
The 1600s.
Was it? Yeah. Salt in about a gallon, 4 litres, 2 quarts of water. Mix it in well, mix. 4 quarts.
Yeah.
When the black herds of rain were grazing in the gap of the pure cold wind, and the watery hazes of hazel brought her into my mind, I thought of the last honey by the water, that no hive can find. Brightness was drenching through the branches when she wandered again, turning silver out of dark grasses where the skylark had lain. And her voice coming softly over the meadow was the mist becoming rain.